It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, August 14th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's going to get into the 2021 draft for the Flyers and who's left unsigned.
Okay, I'm game.
We'll talk about prospects for those prospects. We'll give you our new summer poll question, plus our Nemesis of the week, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. As a show, we're on Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky at Locked On Flyers as well. You can subscribe or follow us for free on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you get podcasts, you will get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, the reason why I wanted to talk about some unsigned draft picks is because we are supposed to have this deadline tomorrow, August 15th, where that would have been the deadline to sign Jay O'Brien, which we know they're not going to. So we should get official word on the compensatory draft pick. Then it'll be the 19th pick in the second round. So 51st overall.
Yeah, that's fine. Some people want the pick. That's fine. When you get the pick, you're now kicking that for 4 years down the line, maybe 5. And I would select the player just because I think the player has a little something there. And even if he's just a Phantoms guy in the end, he'll help that situation because he's definitely worth it for that. But I get it. They don't have interest, so take the pick. But for everybody that's acting like the pick is like the shrewd move here, it's, once you get into the 51st pick in second round, the odds go down. And that's the thing. You're talking about a 30 percentile chance of that guy playing meaningful NHL games. So that's, just so people understand.
Yeah. So he is one of the guys that has been sort of a leftover from an earlier draft in 2018, as was Ivan Fedotov, that whole situation. He was a 2015 draft pick for the Flyers. The ruling on that from the IIHF is supposed to be today, according to word on the street. So we'll see if that happens, and hopefully it will be resolved and he'll be staying in the KHL and we can move on with our lives. But you never know. Things have happened.
Yeah, I just think this is going to be like Geraldo Rivera opening up Al Capone's vault, and they're going to be like something crazy decision like, well, we looked at these contracts and we're still not sure. It's going to take the whole season to figure it out. Something weird. I don't know. Something unprecedented. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, and it just sort of brings up the question overall, like I said, about unsigned draft picks and where the Flyers are going with their guys that they hold rights to. So we're going to get to the remaining 2021 draft picks in the next segment. But in the meantime, the Flyers have Bryce Brodzinski still laying around from the 2019 draft. He is still under the Flyers in terms of rights holding, because he's remained in college all these years. We've talked about him recently, that he has one more year at University of Minnesota.
He's lighting it up in the Beauty League. Come on.
Yeah, he is. We've been talking about him because of the Beauty League mostly, but he is slated to return to Minnesota this fall for that 5th bonus year of eligibility. So the Flyers do maintain his rights until a month after he graduates college. And, we'll go from there from him. But I have no concept of whether the Flyers have interest in him at this point. It's really hard to tell.
I don't either, but I would, because again, he and his brother are very feisty, good, decent hockey players that even if they're not NHLers, you want in your system. Even if he's a guy that comes in and fills in for a week and that's all the NHL time he ever gets, he's a good hockey guy to have around. And so I would want him around just for that. But again, The new administration may feel differently about him. If he has a big year at Minnesota, though, he's going to have suitors. Like, there's just no question about it.
And he may want to walk, which it's going to be a difficult position. So I think if the Flyers have interest in him, it's in their best interest to make that known early and often.
Yes.
So that and communicate with him, because I think that's going to be important, especially to establish the new administration, so to speak. I do think that all of these circumstances are a little wonky, to say the least, but that's sometimes what happens when you have a change in leadership with teams, and it's not just the Flyers. So
a lot of teams go through this.
Yeah, and there are other players who are in the same boat as Jay O'Brien, whose rights could expire on August 15th.
They're going to expire.
Yeah, there's a few that have been announced as such. And so are there any of this other batch of players from other teams that maybe the Flyers should take a look at?
I mean, if I'm them, I would take a look at John Farinacci. He's a center. He played great at Harvard. I became aware of him at the NHL Combine just a little before that. Had a long conversation with him. Ted Donato is the guy that scouted him. Like I said, really good college career. Had a good, really good year before that at Dexter, at a known hockey school, or good hockey environment, I should say. And I think he just never was going to sign with the Coyotes. And I think that's why the Coyotes waited till the third round to pick him. But I think he's a better talent than that. But the thing is, look, he's played in Harvard. He went to Dexter. So I'm sure if the Bruins come calling, it's going to be hard for him to ignore that. But from the Flyers, I got to look at him because he has the ability to play center. He's a really good skater. He is a guy that has some offensive ability for sure. And yeah, I know if I say, and this is the buzzword that the Flyers fans don't want to hear, but if I say, hey, he could play third line center potentially in the NHL, they're going to be like, we got 20 of those guys. Yeah, you do until you don't. Like, it's just,
right.
But he also could play wing. And the thing is, he's done both, and he's a smart hockey player, and he's only 22. So this is a guy now where if you get him, there's a little bit of runway with him. And that's where I think, the bonus is for him.
Yeah, so he was drafted by Arizona in 2019 in the third round, 76th overall. So, there was obviously a lot of interest in him at the time of the draft, and to be picked in the third round is nothing to sneeze at. And Harvard is a pretty strong program. And so if you're successful there, I think that the potential is going to maybe linger a little bit longer than with some other guys. And it's worth taking a chance sometimes.
Yeah. Now, to answer about a few other guys, Master Simone used to be a big name, and he's had good college numbers. He went to Arizona State, put up big numbers there, but that's sort of like where all the I don't want to say where all the rich kids go to play, but it's sort of like that. It has become that. And
yeah, so he was a draft pick from Detroit in 2019 in the second round, 54th overall. So again,
and they have no interest in him, and they've had no interest in him. And so I've been hearing these reports. And so what it makes me think about is there's probably something there other than hockey that they say, we're just not interested in him. So that's why I don't think the Flyers would be interested in him either.
Right.
For whatever that is.
Anyone else?
Christian Krieger is an interesting one. He has a twin brother. He had a little bit of something in his game, just as like a defensive defenseman, but maybe somebody looks at him. I do like Jake Wise a little bit. I do like Jared Moe is an interesting one. He's a 6'4" goalie. When he went to Wisconsin kind of went off the rails a bit. And so maybe that affected him. And me personally, if I could sign a 6'4" goalie that at least had a good year at Minnesota and then sort of went through the system, he's 24. There's only so many goalies in the world. And so I probably sign him to a 1-year ELC and throw him into my system, whether it's ECHL, AHL, and just see what I have. Because again, with goalies, sometimes it takes till 25. So that's one where I think somebody will gamble on.
So with Jared Moe, he is eligible to be signed. He was drafted by Winnipeg in the 6th round. Christian Krieger was drafted by the Islanders in 2018 in the 7th round. He's currently under contract for this upcoming season with an AHL deal. So
Right.
if he could get offered an NHL deal.
And that would be how he gets out of it if he does. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's less
So
likely though.
right. But I think watching him this season on the AHL deal, like, can't hurt, right? Just keeping track of
Right.
how he does.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then, I mean, obviously, if he does really well, maybe the Islanders offer him an NHL deal. But we'll go from there on some of these guys. But yeah, I think that, it's important to notice not just Jay O'Brien in this bucket.
Right. O'Brien's going to be the one that this market, focuses on, and he definitely will get signed by somebody. He could get signed by the Bruins too, because Don Sweeney does sort of like to bring in former first rounders, even though me personally, I think Farinacci's better, but I understand when GMs say, hey, this guy's a first rounder, there's no risk, we'll do it. Okay. But sometimes the first round pedigree isn't worthy. And that's where I always say, don't just blindly say a first rounder because they were a first rounder is better or should get more chances. I don't believe in that, but this league has proven that they do.
Yeah. All right. So, we're going to take a look at the remaining Flyers prospects from the 2021 draft and get a sense of, do we think the Flyers will eventually sign them, or are they going to let them go, much like a Jay O'Brien? And we will do that coming up next.
Football season's about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for the victory. I mean, I'm a Jets fan. You never know. You could use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Take some time to visit FanDuel and include money lines, props, and more around your team.
Coming up on Wednesday's episode, of course, we'll have our weekly mailbag. So get those questions in via email at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. You can tweet us or you can comment over on YouTube as well. Russ, the 2021 draft for the Flyers has been a little bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, there was no first round pick that year. So it was a little weaker of a class overall. Samu Tuomaala was, of course, the top pick for the Flyers in that draft in the 2nd round. The Flyers already signed him to an ELC. We know how that's going. We've talked about it.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about
a lot.
him at a lot. We talked about it when Dev Camp was happening as well. The other 2 players from that draft class who have already been signed, Alexsei Kolosov, the goaltender, of course, and Ethan Samson, defenseman, who I think was, there was always potential there, but I think it was a pleasant surprise in terms of them giving him the ELC as soon as they did. No question, he's been successful in his career in junior hockey.
Yeah, no, I wasn't actually surprised at Samson at all. I mean, I did interview him post draft and followed him a little bit, was impressed with him and thought, yeah, there is something there. And then we've seen what he's done in his junior career. It's actually been really good. So that one, not surprised, to be honest.
So it seems like that if it's a hindsight look, maybe you don't sign Tuomaala. But based on what we knew at the time, and I think that they were eager to kind of lock down Tuomaala and show that that pick was a good pick by giving him the ELC sooner rather than later. So I think at the time, I'm trying to be honest about feelings about it at the time. And I feel like it was maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but it made sense also.
I think it was jumping the gun. I think based on what we were seeing, I understand that what he had tantalizing tools in the draft, and I saw them and said, yes, I get that. But then we saw how these last few seasons have gone. And so like now it's kind of like really up in the air, and he's going to have to play a lot of games to prove it now. And he might, but it's a dice roll now.
Yeah, I think, again, based on what we know now, of course it was too soon and it was jumping the gun. And even a year after the draft, it would have been considered jumping the gun, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to think at the time. I think they just really thought they had to establish this as a good, solid pick. So signing him sort of proves that. But it doesn't really. But to them,
No.
maybe that's the
Yes.
thought process. So
Yes.
I think that's really the question mark here. But I do think the Kolosov signing was good and it was at the right time.
Yeah, I mean,
In
Kolosov's
terms of,
doing great. I don't want to pretend like
yeah,
I know a lot about him. I don't. I'll take the organization's word on it that they love him and he had good stats in the KHL. But again, you watch some of these KHL games and you're like, okay, but for
yeah,
goalies, it's a little harder for in the KHL because defense isn't great either. So, I'll wait and see what he is, but I'm not going to pretend like this is a steal or I know he's a NHLer for sure or anything like
right.
that. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. So that leaves us with 3 players left from that 2021 draft, and 2 of the 3 are in college. So the Flyers retained their rights through that time period. We have Owen McLaughlin, who was drafted in the 7th round, who is currently at North Dakota. And I think, he is somebody, he's 20 years old now. And I think that he obviously needs more time to cook, and we've seen him at development camp and stuff. But I think that he is on a positive trajectory that makes it worth, still keeping him under consideration.
Yeah, I would have him under heavy consideration. Like when they drafted him, they knew it was a long runway, especially when you're drafting someone that's playing high school hockey, right? So they
Yep.
did that. He's had a nice little uptick here. You just have to see if he starts to get a pro body and gets more strength. He's got offensive ability. So
Yep.
just based on that, I have to keep him very close and say, yeah, I'm really considering it with this guy. But again, the longer you wait, the longer things go. If he keeps putting up big numbers, he may not want to be there either. So, it's a give and take there.
Yeah, and then we have Ty Murchison, a left-handed defenseman. He's also 20 years old, obviously, same draft year, so he'd be the same age. Picked in the 5th round, 158 overall, and he's played at the aforementioned Arizona State.
Yeah.
And he's definitely more of a defensive defenseman, not going to put
Yeah.
up big numbers, but he seems to be playing well there and is continuing with the program. And again, I think that it's worth keeping an eye on him and seeing what happens. I think this will be a crucial year for him in terms of taking a step forward. I don't know that the numbers are going to go up, but you got to really look at his defensive play and see where he fits in the college hockey
He's worth watching.
rankings.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's worth watching. I've seen a little bit of him, whether it's in camp, whether it's in games, and he's pretty good. Remember talking to Shel Samuelson about him. So there's a little something there, but there's nothing that you want to jump at yet.
Right. So I think it's good that we have his rights until he leaves
Yes.
college, so that we can keep that kind of on the back burner just in case we feel like he's a guy that we need to sign. The other remaining player from that draft is not a college player. That's Brian Zanetti. And so he was picked in the 4th round at 110th overall. And obviously, a very different path. He's Swiss and has played in the OHL for Peterborough, had a real strong season.
Yeah, that
This
Memorial
last
Cup
year.
run was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, had a great run in the playoffs this year as well for Peterborough, but has also played for the Switzerland national team in World Juniors and played actually, in multiple World Juniors teams,
Yes.
and so that says a lot that he's been a leader and has developed within that program. He is under contract and is going to play back in Switzerland in their national league this upcoming season. And so I think this is kind of the bigger question mark, is that he's a guy, does he want to come back over to North America? And what is the relationship with the Flyers here?
I think the relationship's good. They definitely have talked about him. I think this is him and his agent kind of saying, look, we've taken certain steps. My play is good. You still haven't signed me. I'm going to play in this pro league. Some good players have come out. of here. And if I have a good year, I'm expecting you guys to sign me. So I think if he has a good year and they sign him, I'd say, hey, that's smart. If he has a good year and they don't sign him, then I might say they're risking something here because other teams are going to see it too. They're going to see he's playing against pros. And so I think this is a way to put him out in the spotlight a little bit. He's had great success in the sense that, look, he's not a terrific offensive player or anything, but he's a very effective defenseman, and he's a good puck mover, and he's got a little edge to him. And he's been really good in that international system for them, right? So this is another way to sort of boost that. And if he boosts it, there'll be teams interested.
Yeah, and I think that playing in a pro league over in Europe is going to help highlight those defensive skills that he has. Because if he can be successful there playing against bigger guys than he's been playing against in junior, I think that'll show that the skills are translatable and it'll be worth considering.
Yeah, and I think that's what the plan is for him as far as in his camp. The Flyers camp, they'll just, they'll wait and see, but I do think they need to be proactive with him.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it would be a shame to let him walk, honestly. There's just so much potential there. And
he's only 20. And you got to remember.
With defensemen, he could end up peaking, in terms of where you would want him.
By 22, 23.
22, 20.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would hate to see him walk and have him be successful elsewhere when I know there's potential there. And I've watched him very closely over the past couple of World Juniors, especially, and this past year in the OHL playoffs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I really like him. So I would hate to see him go. All right. Well, we'll see what the Flyers do with these guys. It's going to be another thing to keep track of as the Flyers do this rebuild, and where do this sort of prospect fit into the plan and some of the depth draft picks here. We will be back coming up next with our new summer poll question for this week and our nemesis of the week. All right, Russ, we are back with a new summer poll question. I'm so excited. This is so much fun. I love putting this out there and seeing what the results are week to week. And so it makes me look forward to Friday a lot more to see where the results end up.
Yeah, it's fun. It's, it's good to test the temperature of the audience. I like it.
Yeah, I love it too. So, we started doing some of our season preview crossovers last week with the Columbus Blue Jackets. We talked to the host of Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets, and so that got us thinking, well, who do you all think out there is going to win the Metro Division this season? It might inform who we try and reach out and talk to sooner rather than later for some of those divisional previews. And so we're putting that question out to you this week. YouTube limits the number of responses at 5. So your choices are going to be Carolina, the Devils, the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Penguins. If you think any of the other Metro teams can win the division, you are more than welcome to have those thoughts. And you can put them in the comments.
Right.
But we think the chances are slim for the Flyers, Blue Jackets, and potentially the Caps. So if you're a fan of one of those teams, feel free to let us know.
Sorry.
We can take it. But blame YouTube for limiting the options.
Blame
there.
YouTube, not us.
Not us. All right. Switching over to our nemesis of the week. Last week, we talked a lot about the Hockey Canada report announcement that still has not happened yet. A week later.
I mean, Katie Strang got word from Bill Daly that they're still looking at it. So, okay.
Yeah. All right. So last Monday, we talked about the Flyers without Carter Hart and what that could look like. So take a listen if you haven't to that episode. And that's why it was our nemesis last week, about just not knowing what this timing would be and how it would impact the Flyers. For me, the nemesis this week is now we're in this weird no man's land between all the excitement and some of these signings. And then now we just got to sit and wait for rookie and training camp because the Flyers roster, it's pretty well set, right? And there's not going to be much change to it. There's going to be some spots that are won or lost at camp, but we got to now wait for that. So being in this no man's land is my nemesis this week.
Well, people who know me know what my nemesis is for this week. This is the week where all of a sudden the world unleashes pumpkin spice on us. And when they do that, They take away shelf space from some of the things we like because they turn them into pumpkin spice. The latest thing that I saw that just to me is just disgusting is Frosted Flakes. Like they basically put pumpkin spice
Really?
Frosted Flakes, and it's
Oh
like,
no.
stop it, just stop it. Like it's just so I get crazy this time of the year because it's like pumpkin spice isn't even real. It's a bunch of chemicals. It's not real pumpkin. That's the whole thing. It's just the whole thing is just. I know some people love it, and if you do, that's great. But me, it's my nemesis, man. They're going to start turning into all these products now. All of a sudden, turn into pumpkin spice, and sometimes you go on the shelves, and that's all you see because the other stuff they lessen it during the pumpkin spice time. And again, is this really pumpkin time? No, it's summer. Leave it alone.
Yeah, I think in my world, pumpkin is what you feed your pet to help their digestive system.
Yes.
So it's not something that I like, but again, like you, if that's your thing and you like pumpkin flavor, pumpkin spice, go for it. Like it's not.
Yeah, shoot me a video of you eating those pumpkin spice Frosted Flakes with a smile. I want to see it.
Okay. But I totally get that. I feel like it's a holiday creep. Like we've had that in the past, as like Halloween stuff gets earlier and earlier and like Christmas stuff gets earlier and earlier every year. I feel like pumpkin spice has also crept earlier and earlier.
It has.
But again, if that's your thing, more power to you. Enjoy every sip of your pumpkin spice lattes and all of that. I just will not be partaking.
Me neither.
All right. That will do it for today's show. We will be back on Wednesday, of course, with the mailbag, like I talked about earlier. So if you want your question asked, we already have some good ones in the mailbox already. So make sure you get yours in to get it answered sooner rather than later. You can send us messages via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.